We should be live at any moment here. And we are live.
Great. Good morning. You're here this morning with the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. I am State Senator Mark Lawrence, and I am the Senate Chair of the committee. And we're here today for some presentations and a work session on the various bills we heard last week. So I'll start off with asking the committee to introduce themselves. And I'll start off with my House Chair, Representative Berry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Seth Berry, and I represent House District 55, which is Bowdoin, Bowdenham, most of Richmond, and beautiful Swan Island on the Kennebec.
Next, I'll ask our House Republican lead, Nathan Wadsworth, to introduce himself.
Good morning. Nate Wadsworth, House District 70 from snowy Hiram this morning. Nice to see everybody.
And Representative Sachs. Oops, did she drop off?
No, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Melanie Sachs, and I represent House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell. Thank you.
And next, Representative Grahowski.
Good morning, all. Nicole Grahowski. I represent House District 132, Ellsworth, and Trenton. No snow here today, though. I'm jealous.
Thank you. Senator Vitelli.
Good morning. I'm Eloise Vitelli. I represent Senate District 23, which is all of Saginaw County and the town of Dresden and Lincoln County. Happy to be here this morning.
Great. And then Representative Foster.
Good morning. I'm Representative Steve Foster, coming to you from snowy Dexter. I represent the towns in District 104 of Garland, Dexter, Exeter, Stetson, and Charleston, and I invite everyone up to Saturday's Lake Wassakeag Ice Fishing Derby. Wear your woolies.
And Representative Carlo.
Morning, I'm Representative Nathan Carl. I represent District 16, which is part of my hometown of Hollis and part of Saco.
Representative Kessler.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Representative Chris Kessler, District 32, which is part of South Portland and a little smidgen of Cape Elizabeth. Snow showers this morning, becoming partly cloudy later, high of 37 degrees.
So delighted we're getting the weather reports from around Maine. I saw Representative Ziegler on there for a minute, but then he dropped off. So when he gets back on, we'll ask him to introduce himself. It looks like he was traveling, but not driving. And there may have even been a dog cage in the back seat. So I don't know if we're having a new pet join our committee or not. So we'll have to wait for that exciting news. So it looks like we have 8 people here now. Lindsay, why don't you just go over the agenda, what we're going to be doing today with us?
Certainly. So today we are going to be hearing a presentation from Michael Stoddard from Efficiency Maine Trust. This will be on the annual report. And then we have work sessions on LD 1760 and LD 1829.
And those are the 2 water or sewer district bills we have to work on, correct?
2 sewer district bills, yes.
Yep. And is that it for today, Lindsay?
That's it for today.
Great. Okay, well, why don't we start right off with Michael Stoddard.
Good morning, everybody. Chairman Lawrence, Chairman Berry, members of the committee. My name is Michael Stoddard. I am the Executive Director of the Efficiency Maine Trust and am very pleased to be with you this morning to give you an overview of the annual report that we submitted back in December. That's the report of the last completed fiscal year of activity, which went from July 1 of 2020 to June 30 of 2021. So ending last June 30. And it was a year that was impacted by COVID, like many things were, but to our surprise and we were pleased to see that Maine consumers did not stop thinking about energy efficiency during that time, and we had some really terrific results. So I'm looking forward to sharing them with you. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, and if I goof this up, Jason may come to my rescue, but I think I can share screen and get us going here. Here we go. All right, tell me if you can see that. Is it filling up the whole screen? Okay, here we go. So,
Good, Mike.
Actually,
yes,
Michael,
go ahead.
there is, it's not whole screen. It's pretty good, but
Oh, I see
you
your
might be able to
points.
get the
Hmm.
whole screen if you,
Now, Representative Barry,
Wonder-
usually it's me being one of the older people on the committee who's complaining about not seeing. So I'm beginning to worry about you.
I'm not familiar with the program, but I wonder if the blue icon at the top might help.
The truth is, Representative Barry, that this is I'm going from a PDF, not from the
Yeah.
PowerPoint, and so you're probably seeing there's a couple other tabs up there at the top. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. I was thinking you might be able
so I can
to.
get rid of.
It's fine.
Full screen mode right there. Control L.
There you go.
How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kessler, or whoever that was that provided the assist there. Okay, so let's jump in. Couple of bulleted highlights just to get us started. The high level quantification, the projects that we supported last year across all customer groups, from the biggest paper mill down to the smallest little house, will, over the life of those projects, avoid more than $315 million in wasted energy over the full life of those projects. But that's what 1 year of activity did with our investments. As you know, in most cases, we don't pay the full cost of a project. We provide incentives to try and entice Mainers to upgrade their projects. And in the course of doing that, we were able to leverage more than $92 million of private funds coming in to make those energy upgrades. Probably one of the more exciting things that happened last year, and something I will talk about more, is the ramp up in the rate of heat pump installations that occurred along the way. We passed the milestone of 88,000 heat pumps installed since we started promoting heat pumps back in 2013. And so we were excited to pass that mark. And we're starting to see another product come up behind heat pumps in popularity, and that is the heat pump water heater. It's an excellent replacement for an electric resistance water heater, uses half as much electricity, works very well, and also some people are starting to retrofit them to get rid of their tankless coils coming off their boilers. We were able to support more than 1,800 weatherization projects. And one of the metrics we like to keep track of is what impact our electric efficiency projects are having on summer peak demand on the grid. Just shy of 20 megawatts of summer peak demand were reduced by these projects, and that stacks up on top of the prior dozen years of program activity where those measures are still in effect. So the sum of that is somewhere around, I think, 185 to 200 megawatts of total peak load reduction. And not insignificantly, these reductions also translate into carbon savings, which we all know is an important part of our objectives looking forward, not only short term, but over the long haul. So those are some of the key numbers. I'm gonna apologize in advance for a lot of numbers, but I'm happy to take questions and also try to put some of these things in context if that would be helpful. This is just kind of the pro forma on the dollar amounts. We typically report our activities in two categories, one of which is the electricity programs, and then we contrast that with the thermal programs, which is where we're saving natural gas and heating oil and propane. It's a little confusing because some things save both kinds of energy, but this is important to divide it this way because this helps us keep track of where the money is coming from. And these are funds that are coming from the electric utility ratepayers and the forward capacity market. So, all told, you see the list in the rows there of the main programs that we run, the 7 or 8 main program categories, as well as some supporting activities, what we call strategic initiatives, which is where we do our evaluations and our research and analysis, and then admin, obviously, is the staff and the overhead. So all told, on the electric side, we had just over $50 million in spending, just shy of 40 million of which went straight to incentives to customers and contractors, and another 11.1 was for delivery, which is the category that includes all the marketing and outreach and training, all the back office processing, all the quality assurance and so forth. On the thermal side, which is where most of our RGGI dollars are going, it's where our natural gas utility procurement funds are going. It's where some of the new federal funds are going to go. Same program categories, but you see we've kept track separately by where the funding source is coming, where the funds are coming from. This is a slightly more modest in scope, mostly due to funding constraints. If we had more funding, we certainly could do more on, with things like home weatherization and other kinds of retrofits to save heating fuels. But with what we have, we were able to spend a total of 14.5, just shy of that, of which 10.7 million was for incentives, 3.7 was for delivery. So what are some of the top level takeaways of what we accomplished? As I mentioned before, I think the most exciting thing for us as program administrators, and something that the state of Maine can and should be very proud of, is the transformation that we're starting to see in the marketplace in Maine, of getting familiar with and accepting of and going out and investing in heat pumps, high efficiency, high performance heat pumps designed specifically for cold climates. And they come in all shapes and sizes now. We've come up with a uniform metric or a unit for counting, because obviously a very large heat pump system that you'd put in say an elementary school is not going to shouldn't count just as the same amount as a little mini split that you would put in your sunroom. So we've tried to come up with a consistent unit of measure, and we've converted all of the different projects we did to that measure, which is the equivalent of a mini split heat pump. And last year we installed through our programs 27,300. I think Maine Housing did about another 1,000 for low-income homes. We put heat pumps in low-income homes also, but we don't report on Maine Housing's installations. So these are from all the categories of programs we did. This is the total number of heat pumps. And obviously, you can see from the pattern there, we were doing very nicely. We were growing well, but this ramp up is quite extraordinary, and it tells a very good story in terms of small businesses and jobs. And I mean the people who are marketing and selling and installing and maintaining these products. And certainly all the homeowners and the businesses that are benefiting from now having lower heating costs, greater indoor comfort and indoor air quality, and to say nothing of the very significant carbon reductions that this is achieving.
Well, I see that Representative Wadsworth has his hand up. Do you want to save questions till the end, or are you okay with?
I'll take a question now, but I will ask you, Mr. Chairman, to blurt that out because I can't see anybody, so I don't know if they're going to have questions. So I
will do that.
Thank you, Seth. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you again, Mr. Stoddard. I have a heat pump in my camp, in my office, and in my house, and I definitely believe in them. One of my employees just installed 3 mini splits in his house a month ago, and the installer is not certified with Efficiency Maine Trust, and so he won't be getting any rebates. So do you have any estimates on how many heat pumps in Maine are getting installed that aren't going through the Efficiency Maine Trust rebate way?
I don't, Representative, and it's proprietary and the manufacturers aren't too keen to share it with us, so we don't really know. I would say it's the minority. Because the heat pumps that we have, the models of heat pumps, first of all, there are more than 1,000 vendors and contractors in Maine who are registered with Efficiency Maine to install heat pumps. So they are available from Fort Kent to Kittery and east to west. So there shouldn't be a problem with finding available. There are some delays because these guys are backed up like every contractor in Maine. And so if people aren't, if they're in a hurry and they don't want to wait to get on somebody's schedule, I can see why they might want to just go ahead and find somebody else. But the heat pumps that we are promoting are the highest performing heat pumps in cold climates. And you really do want that if you think you're going to be trying to use the space year round, because that's where they really strut their stuff in cold weather. Even like the temperatures we had yesterday across most of Maine, they would have, and I have a slide that will show this later, they would have kept marching right along, giving you good heat output. So I don't know, Representative, I don't have a number. I don't know whether it's half or a quarter or some other number, but you're quite right. There are other heat pumps being installed out there. And that's, I think, even more so probably the case with commercial projects that may not be showing up on our radar.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, why don't you go ahead and complete your presentation? We can take questions at the end.
Thank you, Senator. So I just want to mention that heat pumps for space heating are not the only game in town when it comes to beneficial electrification. It's also true for water heaters. So this is this slide looks almost the same as the one before, but it is different, I assure you. And this is looking at the number of water heater installations that use heat pump technology. And here again, we're seeing a very significant increase. 2021 was a record year for us. And I do believe that on a per capita basis, Maine is leading the country and running away with it in terms of heat pump water heater installations. So some broader context on how many we have been installing and where we have to go. The targets that were set by legislation in 2019, you can see here on this top dotted line, that's the 100,000 heat pump goal by 2025. We are on a trajectory, looking at what we did over the last couple of years, to exceed that. And that's going to be great. We might even get there about a year early. But if I were to extend the end date of this graph out 5 more years to 2030 to show you what the targets of the Maine Climate Council's Climate Action Plan were, you would see that that trajectory continues up to the right at that slope and maybe even a little bit steeper. So what we're talking about, the way that happens, the way that is feasible is if we transform the marketplace so that when people go to buy heating systems, this is just what they do. They switch to this kind of heating system. They don't replace it with older technologies. They shift to this technology, and the market takes over, and it becomes a market-based solution. So we're priming the pump for that, and we're building up a workforce that can do that, and the small business communities that will support that. And we're getting it into the consumer's consciousness that this is just what you do. And so I think these programs are a real testament to the policies that your committee has passed and the choices that the governors and the regulators have been making to make this a priority. And we're pleased to see that it's working. So I'm going to run through very quickly some highlights of the 6 or 7 core programs that we run. And the programs are largely characterized by the customer segment that they are targeting or the channel, the supply chain channel that we use to try and promote high efficiency products. So the first one is the custom program for C&I. And for folks who don't know, C&I is an abbreviation for commercial and industrial. And it includes institutional as well. So like the universities and the hospitals would be included in this category. Custom programs are just as the name suggests. They're one-offs. There's something unique and usually fairly complex about them. They require some engineering analysis. They are one-by-one proposals that we review on a case-by-case basis, and if they meet certain criteria, they get approved. We usually don't do many projects in this program area per year. It's usually 30, 40, 50 projects a year. Some of them are very, very large. Some of them are not so large, but it's not a high volume program, but it does get very big savings. So 7 million kilowatt hours annual savings and just over 15,000 MMBTU annual savings. The cost effectiveness was excellent this year. For the electric measures, it was just shy of 2.3, natural gas 1.59, and unregulated fuels, which is oil, propane, biomass 1.9. That means for every 1.9 in total project cost, I'm sorry, for every $1 in total project cost, there will be $1.9 in benefits, net benefits. So there were a number of new customers added, which is nice. We like to not just see the same customers over and over again. We like to be expanding the reach of this program. Quite a bit of activity with cannabis cultivation. As folks will know, that cannabis operations use a significant amount of lighting. If they made the low-cost investment decision initially to use high-pressure sodium lights, they're not nearly as efficient as LED lights. And so when the time comes that they can retrofit those, there's very significant savings to be had. And because those things are so such concentrated energy users, it can create quite a relief to the grid and those parts of the grid that are getting stressed to help those operations become more energy efficient. The prescriptive program is the companion to the custom program. These are, this program is for products that are off the shelf, ubiquitously used, and uniformly used, so we know that the savings will be pretty much the same in whatever application they are put to. This is where most of the commercial lighting and HVAC and refrigeration is handled. Slightly smaller savings than the other program, but many, many more participants. Hundreds and hundreds of businesses of all shapes and sizes come through this program. The cost effectiveness was excellent. $2.65 saved in electric for every dollar spent. And when I say dollar spent, I don't mean our program dollars. I mean the combined total of our incentive plus the customers. So that's called the total cost test. 8.9 for natural gas and 5.43 for oil and propane. Couple of the highlights. This was the year of COVID. This was the first full year where we got we saw the impacts of the disruption from COVID. And so a lot of things shut down, and that was negative in many ways, obviously, but there turned out to be some opportunities, and we tried to be nimble and take advantage of those. The first one was that all the schools were closed down. So we said, well, if there's nobody in there, maybe you could go in and finally get through all those classrooms and replace the lighting with LED lights. So we had a special opportunity just for lighting in schools, and that was terrific. And they were able to get that all done over the spring and into the summer of 2021 before the kids started coming back in the fall. Parking and pole lighting retrofits. Again, this is outdoors, so it's safe. We didn't have to worry about people coming into contact in enclosed spaces. Package terminal heat pumps was another that we tried to do to help the lodging sector. There were periods when the lodging was closed for business, and so they had the opportunity to make some of these improvements without inconveniencing their clientele. We also did a special promotion with municipalities to help them get into lighting and heat pumps. And this was something we did in collaboration with the Nature Conservancy. So they had a foundational charitable donation to help increase those incentives a little bit. And that really helped out. And we focused on rural areas and smaller towns for that promotion. I'm going to jump ahead. I just want to highlight one of the more exciting technologies that we're promoting, and I think there's going to be tremendous potential in the year ahead with the newly received federal funds, and that is something called variable refrigerant flow systems. Not that easy to say, so we abbreviate it VRF so we don't trip over our tongues every time. But these are going to be very good applications for school buildings, for example, public school buildings. When those school buildings find that it's time to switch out of their old system and switch over to something new, we think this is the way they should go. And we're making a big push to educate the consumers in the school districts about this and help them pay for it. And it uses heat pump technology. I guess I should have said that, but it's just a special application of heat pump technology. So we have an entire initiative that is targeted at small businesses, and we have very intensive marketing where we use the utilities consumer billing data, and we're able to reach out directly to all the small business customers, let them know that this program, this initiative is available in their town, and then connect them with a contractor who can come do a quick scoping walkthrough and an assessment of what their lighting situation might be. And so it's so intensive that we're not able to do it all across the state all at once, or we haven't been traditionally. So we have worked our way across the state. And several years ago, we started up in Aroostook County, and we've worked our way all the way down through every part of the state. And anyway, that program was quite successful. It was a little bit harder hit by COVID than some of the others, because as you can imagine, some of the small businesses just closed their doors for periods of the year. And so it was a little harder to reach people. But still, a bunch of good projects got done. And you can see here on the slide lists of the particular towns that we focused on last year. And we're moving forward with more this year. The one innovation was that we had previously only been offering lighting as a measure in these projects. And with the arrival of some new funding resources, we were able to include heat pumps in that equation. And so 554 customers were outfitted with new heat pumps as a result of that. Did I switch? Yes. Sorry. The next one is called distributor initiatives. The name of this program is perhaps not really intuitive. Distributors is the jargon in the industry for wholesalers, or what they call supply houses. So if you have ever used an electrician or a plumber or a contractor and to do a project at your home or business, this is where they go shop. They don't always go to Home Depot. They go shop at these places where they have an account. And it's an extremely administratively efficient way for Efficiency Maine to help the contractors sell the idea of a higher energy efficiency option. And the main reason is there's no paperwork and there's no fronting the money. They don't have to pay for the more expensive product and then fill out a form and send it to us and wait 6 weeks and say, hey, can you send me a check for my incentive? It's instantaneous. We take it off the top right at the checkout, and then we work it out with the distributors later. And so that's really a win-win for those guys. It makes their jobs very easy. They go marching off and install the product, and we take care of the paperwork later. So this has been a fantastic channel for something like heat pump water heaters. When I'm sure you guys are getting tired of hearing me tell this story, but when a water heater dies, it's a mini emergency in every household. You're not really excited to wait a couple weeks to get a new water heater. You want a new water heater pretty quickly. And so you call the plumber and the plumber goes and grabs the first water heater that they find that's cheap. And that's a problem because you then are left holding the bag to pay much higher electricity costs for the life of that product. So there's this instant in time, there's this moment where you have the opportunity to convince them to get the better, more efficient product. And that's why the distributor initiatives is such a clever program strategy to address that situation, the instant purchase, the emergency purchase. And that's why we've been so fortunate. You know, heat pumps have a useful life of somewhere between 10, 15 or 15, 20 years. And when their time is up, it's up. And so across the 550,000 households of Maine, these things die regularly and then they need to be replaced. So that's what we're seeing happening here. And we're really lucky to be able to get these folks into a much, much better, more efficient, less costly piece of equipment. Retail initiatives is the complement to the distributor initiatives. The contractors go shopping at distributors, consumers and homeowners and small business people often march down to the local big box store, the local hardware store, and that's where this program operates. Primary measures moved through the retail initiatives are light bulbs and dehumidifiers, air purifiers, small appliances like that, and also heat pump water heaters. So the results of that were just under 40 million kilowatt hours saved on an annual basis. The cost effectiveness is quite good, 3.24. And as you can see, almost 3,000 heat pump water heaters. So it was not an insignificant contributor to the heat pump water heaters. I can't fail to point out the 1.4 million LED light bulbs. This is just an example of how Efficiency Maine's programs are available to everybody. So these, you know, everybody's got lights, and it's a nice feature of these programs that they're able to offer something for everybody. And 1.4 million bulbs annually, and there've been some years where it was up as much as 3 million, tells you that there's everybody's getting a piece of the action. The Home Energy Savings Program is a pretty self-explanatory name. This is the program through which all of the home insulation projects are done. This is also the program through which the heat pumps are promoted to homeowners. And as I was saying before, the story of this, well, there was a two-part story. One was that heat pumps really took off in a very exciting way. The other was that the pandemic really hurt weatherization. And that's something we're going to have to continue to focus on and work on in the year ahead, in the years ahead. They lost some workforce, and I mean, we're very fortunate that some of the federal funds we have is going to help us try to reinvigorate that sector, but that's going to take some work, and they had a hard year. So we saw a slight decrease in activity and weatherization. I wanted to quickly mention a couple of innovations that we do. One of the things we realize, you may not know that we do inspections of between 10 and 15% of all the measures that go through the Home Energy Savings Program. We want to make sure that the installer did what they said they did, put in the units that they said they did that we paid for, and that they did a decent job of it and followed the basic protocols. We used to have a person that worked for us and would jump in their car and drive around to a sampling of all of the completed projects. Well, when COVID came, it was viewed as risky to do that from a health standpoint. And so we came up with a new innovation, which is this stream video, which we can text the homeowner after having reached out to them and in advance and said, would you be amenable to us doing this? They say, sure, fine. Here's my cell phone number. So we send them a text, and at the appointed hour, our team member, who you see Ash Richards there, an inspector up in the corner in the inset, he sends them a text and says, click on this link. And they click on the link and an app launches. It's not something they have to download. It launches, it's in the cloud. And he can see what their phone camera shows him. So he's sitting at his desk and he asks them to walk around their house and go outside and point the camera at the heat pump, please. And then he can have him go right up close. And if he wants, he can have him take a picture and it saves to his files. So he can see that the installation was done properly. The location was good. He can confirm the model and the size and the quantity. And it's proved to be a tremendous, actually it's a cost saver, and it's enabled us to do more projects, to inspect more projects. So it's been a great little workaround, and I'm proud of the team that came up with it so that we could keep checking on quality. I couldn't resist putting in this slide. One of the things we do with our programs, and folks may not be aware, is we perform independent third-party evaluations. How is it going? How is it working? What could be better? Are the products performing as advertised? Are they saving as much energy as we forecasted that they would save? And a couple of years ago, we did this in the home energy savings program for heat pumps because we were concerned about how well they would function in the cold weather. And as you can see from this slide, even at 0 degrees, they still have a COP, a coefficient of performance of 1.5. That means they're 150% as efficient as an electric resistance baseboard would be, even at 0 degrees. Finally, when you get down to about -20, you can see that it was still working. It was still making heat, but not very efficiently at -20 degrees Fahrenheit. But everything from 0 and above was a win from an efficiency standpoint. So there's 2 points to note here. One is it's still making heat. It is working in extremely cold weather. And 2, it is extremely efficient even at 0 degrees and above. The thing for most of us in Maine, not in every single community, but in most communities in Maine, the number of hours per year that it is below 0 is very few. Very few. You'd save between $1 and $10 by our calculations if you stopped using it during those super cold times. So it's not worth it to try and turn it off and play and sort of time the market to run your other heating system, in our opinion, because you're going to forget to turn it back on at 3 o'clock in the morning when the temperature, or 4 or 5, whenever, when the temperature comes back up above the break-even point. So it does matter what electricity prices are. As electricity prices go up, the economics are more strained for heat pumps. But even at today's prices, which are up quite a bit, it's better to use your heat pump through the whole heating season. And you know, it doesn't stay below 0 for a week or a month. It might be for a day or 2 days. But what we see and what customers are figuring out is these things work well in Maine winters. And here's another metric how you can tell that. We call customers. We say, what is your satisfaction level? How happy are you with the program? How happy are you with the product? How happy are you with the customer? I'm sorry, with the contractor. And even over 7 years of ownership, people still rate these things at 9 or, at a 9 after 7 years, but the average is right around 9 out of 10. So still getting excellent scores. I think if they were failing to perform well, you'd see it in these results. The next program category, one of our core programs, is low income initiatives. We have a special focus on low income initiatives. Last year was a banner year. I think it was our best year for fully investing our budgets. And we spent, I guess I have it on the next slide. Sorry. We were really successful primarily with the heat pump water heater initiative, where we direct install to customers who are on the LIHEAP list. The cost effectiveness of this initiative was spectacular on the electric side and on the unregulated fuels. One of the things we were able to do with some funds that came out of the NECEC settlement was to start an initiative to provide heat pumps in homeowners, not who had an electric resistance water heater in place, but who had tankless coil on their oil boiler. So we removed that and switched them over to high performance heat pump water heaters. Here we go. Here's the slide I was looking for in the data on the actual totals from the low income initiatives. You can see we fully expended $5.3 million on programs targeting low income customers. We estimate that we will have reduced the energy bills of those customers by $29 million over the full lifetime of those products that were installed. You really see the breadth of coverage here in this list of products, that high efficiency products that are distributed to Maine's low income customers. This is from before the federal funds arrived. So I think one of the things you'll see change next year is that the number of homes upgraded with building envelope insulation and air sealing is going to rise significantly. One of the things you all authorized with LD 1733 last year in the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan was $25 million for weatherization in low and moderate income homes. So that's going to be a tremendous focus for us over the next several years, and you'll see those numbers go up dramatically. Equity is a very important issue in all of the policy discussions we're part of, and certainly within our organization. And one of the things we do is try to see how we're distributing our program benefits across the state by region. And on the left map here, you see a map of population density using US Census data. And the darker areas are the more densely populated, and the yellow and green areas are less densely populated. In the middle part of the middle map that you see median household income by census tract area. So the darker areas are the higher median household income, and the more pale colored areas are lower median household income. And then on the right, and this is just one metric, but this is the one we are able to track the easiest, where did those heat pumps go? And the funding that we have for heat pumps per 100 population. Isn't it interesting to see that up in the county, there was terrific penetration of the heat pump program, and all through around Dover Foxcroft, maybe not surprisingly, because there's some very active vendors in that area. But it's great to see that we're seeing geographic diversity, and it is occurring in areas, geographic distribution, I meant to say, of where the programs are working. The final area of program activity is the EVs. You all passed legislation in 2019 establishing two program areas at the trust, one for EVs and one for EV chargers. And it coincided with the arrival of some money from the VW settlement. And so we haven't been using any electric utility ratepayer funds for this, and we haven't been using any Maine taxpayer dollars for this. This has all had other funding sources. It started with the VW settlement funds, and now we're seeing more funds come in from the federal programs. And so the thing to note here is that we did run a year's worth of programs for providing rebates on the purchase of vehicles. And I have a couple of slides on this that I think I can just quickly show you. One is, where are the EV charging stations going? And it's a pretty good map now. I just want to be clear, these are not all projects that EMT funded. These are where all of the public chargers are in the state now, sprinkled around. The red, orange dots are the high-speed chargers, and the blue dots are the level 2 chargers, which are a little bit slower, but still pretty good. Each dot represents a site, and there may be multiple plugs or chargers at each site. But even just through our programs and the funds that we had, we were able to procure and install 14 high-speed charging plugs, and 14 more have been awarded and are going to be built this current calendar year. Those are the ones you see with the little lightning bolt on them. And then more than 200 plugs installed at 50 locations like towns and schools and business buildings and apartments and state government buildings. So that's what we've been able to do through our programs, but the totals are getting to be very respectable now. And I think with the addition of the federal funds that are coming, you'll see us be able to fill up this map from north to south and east to west so that you can really drive anywhere you want to go in an EV. Here are the results of the EV rebates for the cars. These are for vehicles that had an MSRP of less than $50,000. And our rebate was either $2,000 for a battery electric vehicle, which is 100% electric, or $1,000 for a plug-in hybrid, which is a dual propulsion system, and a little more popular with SUV type vehicles. But you can see that during during calendar 21, which is the beginning part of this fiscal year that we're reporting on, it finally started to take off. I think that's when the pandemic, people felt they could go back out shopping again at dealerships. And so we were on this nice trajectory when the fiscal year ended. Unfortunately, I think what happens after you get beyond this date on the calendar here is that the supply chain interruptions are going to start to hit in the fall. And so I think this curve has come back down again, but I'm hoping that as the pandemic recedes, we're able to get it going. Finally, we do some administrative things. I mentioned before that we do evaluations. We did a ton of work in preparation for filing our triennial plan, which we filed in November at the Public Utilities Commission, was approved by our board in September, and that will govern the next 3 fiscal years of activity. One of the more interesting things that came out of those assessments was we did a study of recently constructed residential buildings in Maine. New construction over the last 3 years. 1 out of every 5 new residential buildings built in Maine is all electric. All electric, no fossil heating systems. And 37% of all new homes in Maine have at least 1 heat pump in them. We thought that was really noteworthy. I won't go into what we did in our innovation pilot project. Some really exciting work is happening here on demand management and has put us in a position to propose in our triennial plan launching a new demand response program and a load shifting program. We're really excited to get that going as soon as possible. And then this is a grab bag of all the other things that we do. And so in the interest of completeness, we listed out all the activities that we had going on during the year. I did want to add an org chart. You all enacted a number of pieces of legislation over the last couple of years, and the question periodically came up, are you guys going to be able to do all of this? And I wanted to let you know that so far so good. We seem to be growing into the task. The gray boxes here are our staff of 25 people, and then the sort of I don't know what color, the sort of rose colored boxes on the sides are the subcontracted teams that work with us, some of them on a daily basis, some of them just from time to time. But we have a supremely talented group of subcontractors and staff that have built up a lot of expertise and are very committed to this mission and very grateful to the responsibilities you've given us. And with that, I'll end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'll just ask people who have questions just to raise their virtual hands. Representative Sachs.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And I'm not sure, I see the screen still has the presentation on it, but
I can take that down. I didn't know if people were going to want to reference it.
That's true. Mine won't, but it may be, Mr. Stoddard. Thank you for being here this morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
On the municipal level, I had the pleasure of working with Efficiency Maine on several projects here in Freeport back in the day. So I really appreciate the longevity with which Efficiency Maine has continued to work with municipalities to do some of this work. My particular interest has always been weatherization when I was on the Freeport Town Council, and now I am, as you indicated that you may be, a wee bit concerned about the 1,800 homes that you were able to complete with weatherization when our main climate action council goals are to have 35,000 completed by 2030. At the current rate, that'll be 14,400 homes. You mentioned that that's going to be an initiative that you're really excited about. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I did note that there had been a low uptake. You'd done some outreach, although I do question sort of some of the places you all went for a low income outreach. And I noted on page 77 of your report, I really did read your report, that Maine Housing is having a similarly struggle, I think, in reaching for weatherization, not for heat pumps, but for weatherization. Can you talk a little bit about the expanded focus that you might have on this and how we can be helpful with that?
Yes, thanks. I'd be happy to. So the first thing to note is that weatherization in both the low income customer context and in the market-based customers is always funding constrained. And so and part of that, is to be clear, is that we do not use electric ratepayer dollars to do weatherization in cases where it would, which is in almost all cases, not save, it would not be a cost-effective savings of electricity, because that's what those dollars are dedicated to. So we need other dollars, and we've been fortunate to have some amount of RGGI funds to do that, a significant amount of RGGI funds, but we were basing our incentive levels on the amount of funding that we saw available to us. And I think Maine Housing does the same thing with their weatherization assistance program that is federally funded. So that, and that was a big limiter on how far and how fast those programs could reach. The big change from last year is that the new federal funds from the American Recovery Plan Act that came through you and the governor's proposals to earmark $25 million for weatherization for low and moderate income households. So that's just a total game changer. And the first thing it enables us to do is significantly increase the amount of money that we can offer to the individual projects. So before, we just were very limited in what we could do there. That in turn makes it a lot more interesting for the contractor community to go out and do these projects, because now they can make a little bit more money on the job. They can offer workers a little bit more money to do the work, and that's attracting people back into the workforce. But so we have a long way to go, I think, to rebuild that capacity and grow it to the levels that we need. But I'm not pessimistic about our ability to reach the Climate Council's targets of doubling the rates to meet that 35,000 target that you talk about, because at least for the next several years, we will be well funded. As I was mentioning to Representative Kessler recently in a meeting, in addition to the low and moderate income funding that we have available, our board of trustees saw the Maine Climate Council's recommendations and acted accordingly by putting significantly more of the RGGI funds on the budget line for the home insulation and weatherization projects. So it's more than doubled. And that is going to enable us to increase the rebates, which we have now recently announced. So the rebates are something like 40% more generous than they were in the past. So we're hoping that will stimulate a lot more interest in this. And you'll see us doing much more with marketing than we've ever done in the past, because in the past, frankly, we didn't want to overheat the market. There wasn't going to be, we would have just been pushing people to a place where we didn't have any funds, sufficient funds to meet the demand.
If I could follow up, Mr.
Yes, if you go ahead, Representative Sachs.
And I think you've hit it, Mr. Stoddard, is on the flip side of that, while there was, you mentioned 1,000 heat pump installers, there's about 30 weatherization home energy performance companies, 4 or 5 which do half of the installation. So when you incentivize the marketplace, the capacity is not there to meet it, even if we wanted to, it sounds like at this point. I know that we didn't really talk about this morning, but Efficiency Maine has now been empowered around the green, what's called the Green Bank. It was legislation I was involved in. Has there been some conversations about low capital or forgivable loans to weatherization companies to help them scale up capacity, for example, for another van, which is about $75,000, for example. So has there been that sort of, okay, looking at all the silos of all the things we do, we know there's a need here for weatherization. We've talked to the weatherization community. We know there's going to be more capacity. Has there been that sort of conversation?
Frankly, no, well, we've had conversations with the contractor community about their interest in finding help in a variety of types, financial, technical, legal advice on how to grow in this economy and to meet the demands of these programs that we are ramping up and Maine Housing is ramping up. So we're aware of the concerns and the issues and the challenges. The discussions around the Green Bank that we have had so far have focused entirely on the consumers and ways that we can facilitate and expand access of that financing to consumers. So I haven't had that exact conversation that you mentioned, which is, could we use those funds for the contractor community? It did come up in our discussion of what we were planning to do in our triennial plan. And in that discussion, we pointed out to the contractor community that there's this really tremendous resource that has been put in the LD 1733 for funding of the ARPA funds to go to that purpose, to build capacity in small businesses and in workforce. So we thought that that was a better fit for the source of funding. And none of that is coming through us at Efficiency Maine. Maybe people would want to route it through us, but thus far that hasn't been suggested to me.
Any further follow-up, Representative Sachs?
Yeah, just one more, please, Mr. Chair, is who would they talk to then, Mr. Stoddard, around that specific piece of it?
Yeah, so I know that $8 million, if memory serves, was dedicated to workforce development for clean energy, and that is under the Governor's Energy Office. And then I think the more generic workforce development things were, and small business things were being routed through Department of Labor and DECD.
Great.
So if you're talking about a business, supporting a business, I think I'm subject to check, maybe DECD is where those funds went.
Great, thanks so much, because it is both sides of the coin, right? If you're going to
Yes.
incentivize the marketplace, we need to be able to help the businesses to get there. So thank
Agreed.
you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Representative Sachs. Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have, I think, 4 questions that I've counted here, but I will ask those as you deem appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Stoddard, for being here this morning. First of all, I'd like to, got a couple of budgeting questions in your annual report. On page 82, the amended budget, it states that the 2022 budget is approved by the Board of Trustees. On the last column, it has fiscal year 2021 on it. So I'm assuming those numbers are from 2021. Is that correct?
Give me 1 second, Representative. I'm getting to the same place.
Okay.
And I apologize, at least on my version, there seem to be some issues with pagination in part of this report. If other people experience that, I can promise to get you an updated version. So what is the table header that you're reading?
Appendix C, amended budget, table C1.
Yep. Okay, I'm there.
Okay. Last column, top of the page, top of the spreadsheet. It's a 2022 budget, but in that column, it says 2021. I have to use a magnifying glass to read
Yes.
that particular piece, but
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure that that was intended to say 22.
okay, thank you. With that in mind, obviously, one of the concerns that I have, and some of my constituents at least, whenever a government program, if you will, Efficiency Maine in this case, takes money, which eventually somehow comes from the consumers, if you will, and repurposes those funds, we look at what did that cost us, right? So from reading this, I see that the budget says just over $147 million is what will be utilized. And down the page, it looks like approximately just over 136 million will be for funding programs going back to the public, if you will, to the consumers. That leaves about $11 million. If I'm correct, that's about a 7.5% overhead or operating or whatever cost, if you can tell me if that's right or not.
No, that's not right, Representative. Because all the overhead and admin is counted in here. I think what's throwing this off a little bit is that we find ourselves in the situation where we are receiving some funds that is meant to be used over multiple years. So it hits our books all in 1 year, and so we report it all because we have to, but we don't intend to use it all in 1 year. It's in some cases intended to be used over 3 or 4 years.
So if I look at the line on administration, which is just under $10 million,
yes,
is that more? Is that the number I should actually be using?
Yes, it is, and yes, it is.
Okay, with the budgeting in mind, on page 58 of that report, table 20, statement of revenues and expenditures for the governmental fund. You've got monies in there for $2.6 million from the NECIC settlement proceeds. Assuming that that is no longer going to be available, how will that be addressed?
You are correct. We did receive, so two things. The funds that are listed in, is this table 20, am I correct? That you were referencing? Yeah. I think so.
Yes, table 20.
So those are funds that were received, are in hand, and do not need to be adjusted. We had also budgeted for future installment payments from the NECEC, which has been suspended. So if your question is, what are you going to do about the money you thought you were going to get that you're not going to get? The answer is, I don't know yet. We may try to backfill that with some of the other sources that have been recently directed to us, whether through the federal funds, or we might have the ability to use some Reggie dollars to backfill. But going forward, we're operating under the assumption that we will not receive further NECEC funds. But the ones that you see in this table were already received, and most of them have already been spent.
Thank you, Mr. Stoddard. If it's okay, Mr. Chair, I'll continue.
Continue, please.
Okay, thank you. On page 77, table A1, program impacts in 2021 electric programs. Just want to confirm, it looks like in the next to the last column in that spreadsheet, the cost of the programs to the ratepayers is approximately, well, not approximately 4.8 cents per kilowatt hour. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you are.
So that would be an increase, if you will. If Efficiency Maine didn't exist, and not looking at everything else that you would argue helps keep rates down, that would be an additive cost on the rate. Is that correct?
You mean because it's above market?
Right.
I want to get back to you on, right. I want to get back to you on that. That's, okay. I'm sorry, that cost though, Representative, is the total cost,
over lifetime of the programs, right?
It's the combined cost of the efficiency main plus the participant
Right.
reflected. So just want to be clear on that.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, one of the charges for Efficiency Maine when it was formed, and I think it continues to be to a point, however, you've mentioned that obviously the world is changing, was to help reduce electrical use in Maine. Now, we know that as we electrify the state, we're going to increase electrical use, but we should be decreasing energy use. However, I'm wondering how Efficiency Maine looks at the, I guess, big picture, if you will, where that people now have, I've got 2 PCs running here in my house. My wife and I both have cell phones that we charge on a regular basis. The EPA in their website says that charging 1,081 cell phones, and I'm not sure where they're getting their energy from, is equal to the same amount of tons of carbon production as burning 1 gallon of gasoline. So let's say 1,000 cell phones, and I can't even imagine how many cell phones there are in the state of Maine, but I have read different things that tell about how much downloading a certain video takes for energy and so on and so forth. And it's really kind of mind-boggling. I'm wondering how Efficiency Maine looks at that as you project ahead, what we're going to need and how we're going to get there as these new opportunities for using electricity come online and get compounded. Thank you.
That's a pretty involved question, Representative, but I think I can break it down into at least some pieces that I know guide us in thinking how to proceed and where we're trying to get to. The first is that we do want growth in this state, right? We want economic growth. We want development. We want people to be more productive and more comfortable, whether it's in their business or their home. And technology is going to advance. And as you point out, more and more of it is electronic and digital and runs on electricity. And so we see load growing as a result of that. How we view our charge is maybe slightly differently than the point you raised, which is, I agree, one of the objectives of our organization, but it's not at the exclusion or to the detriment of growth. And so the way we view our charge is that we want to help Maine be as efficient as it can be. And so if customers are going to buy more cell phones or more computer monitors, we want to make sure that they're getting the most efficient options available. And as you know, with many electronic devices and certainly with many systems that go into businesses and factories and your home, like heating systems, for example, you have choices. You have many choices. And we want to help people make the most cost-effective choices. And this is going to be particularly important in the next decade or two, because one of the choices that's going to happen is we're going to be transitioning away from the kinds of systems we've been using for 100 years that run on fossil fuels, and we're going to be switching over to things that run on electricity. It's going to have challenges, but it's also going to have great advantages over the long haul. And so we want to help people make that transition in a sensible, thoughtful way, and that's what we try to do with these funds and with education and training and so forth. And so we want to manage the transition to electrification in a way that is the lowest possible cost to Mainers, and that's going to mean making sure people get the highest efficiency version of a heat pump, not a lower efficiency version, and that that we start becoming much more sophisticated about managing the end uses so that they can ramp up and ramp down to keep the grid reliable and in balance. And so all those things, I think, will translate into an increase in electricity overall as we shift cars from gas to electric, as we shift heating systems from boilers to heat pumps. It's going to go up for sure. But then I think the net consumption of energy will decline, hopefully, and except for the fact that there will be growth in the economy overall. So I would maybe they're going to maybe counterbalance each other a little bit. But we're shifting. We're making a transition from one way of doing things to another, and we want to make sure we do it in the most efficient way possible. Keep those costs as low as possible.
Thank you.
Great. Representative Foster, are you complete on your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Representative Kessler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Stoddard. Good to see you. So I have a series of questions. My first one piggybacks off of Representative Foster's question around the NECEC funds that have already been distributed and spent. Is there a contingency plan in case, they want to claw that money back?
My reading of the settlement is that they cannot claw back funds that have been committed.
That's nice. Okay. Question number 2. For the slides where you said that, or you had showed the annual savings, so was that just for this past year?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And when you were talking about EV chargers, it looked like there was a negative savings to that. Was that due to the fact that just the install costs for the chargers are so high, or what was behind that?
It's on a table where we show the amount of electricity that's being saved. But when you add an electric vehicle, you're not saving electricity, you're adding electricity. So it appears as a negative number. Next to it, I believe there was a positive number which showed the amount of fossil fuels that was being saved. So that appears as a positive.
Okay, gotcha. And I was just wondering if you could give us your opinion on something. There was some recent activity in the media. The Maine Energy Marketers Association had called for a stop to all heat pump rebates. And I was wondering if you might be able to comment on if that would, or if there's any validity to what they had to say about, biofuels and keeping with that infrastructure and the overall transition. Just wondering if you could comment on that.
Okay, I'll try. The first thing to note is that the ISO New England came out immediately after the oil dealers issued their letter and clarified that they did not think that heat pump programs were causing any particular risk to the reliability of the grid this winter. So the premise for the letter in the first place was inappropriate, in my opinion. It's not wrong that biofuels can play a role. The issue I think that they face is that there's not very much of it available. You couldn't possibly run our economy on it. There's not enough. That's the chief issue. There's a companion issue, which is very down in the weeds, and I'm not interested in going down there, but I think there is a fair question about whether, in fact, that is a net benefit for carbon, for meeting carbon targets. The way the Maine statute counts progress towards meeting the targets for carbon reductions in 2030 would say it's not a net benefit. So that's an issue, but that's not really my big hang up. I think the bigger problem is cost and availability to scale up.
Thank you very much.
Are you all set, Representative Kessler?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Representative Grohowski?
I think Representative Barry was next, actually, if that's okay.
That's fine. On my screen, you're next, but I don't mind going to Representative Barry. Representative Barry?
I'm fine either way. Thank you, Representative Grabowski. And thank you, Mr. Stoddard, for this presentation. It's great to see the progress that you've been able to highlight in the annual report. And I'm looking forward to more. I wonder if you could, in that spirit, speak a little bit more about one point, which, I mean, it's really a small slice of what's.
You just went on mute, Representative.
Sorry about that. I accidentally bumped the mute button. The slide regarding new homes. Could you speak about the 1 in 5 homes being all electric? I presume that means progress, although I don't have any benchmark to go by there. And where I assume you'll keep tracking it as well. So can you speak to the extent to which that represents a shift, and whether that's something that you expect to see continuing to accelerate?
Oh, absolutely. So it's got to be a shift. I mean, I don't have data, but do you think that 10 years ago people were making homes that were entirely running on electric? I'm sure they didn't. I don't think any contractor, except for maybe the rare case, but to say that 1 out of 5, these are randomly selected homes. This isn't like we didn't just go to the greenest green person and say, what kind of funky house did you build that runs on some exotic heating system? We randomly selected 126 or 127 homes that have been built in the last 3 years, and 1 out of 5 is all electric with heat pumps only. That seems extraordinary to me. The reason I think it's going to continue is that people are starting to realize it's actually cheaper to build up front that way. You do not need to pay for a chimney if you're not going to put in a boiler. That's different. I didn't have to, there's a whole bunch of bricks I didn't have to pay for. So not only does it have lower operating costs over the life of the building, not only is it vastly cleaner for the environment, not only does it give you air conditioning through the summer, it's also cheaper to install in the first place. So it's going to pivot. It's not cheaper in every case right now. And it's not always going to be completely suitable for every home right now. So I still think it's in transition, but I think it's extraordinary to see that. And it's also somewhat of a testament, I think, to our building codes. As the building codes have gotten better, it means the homes are better insulated, which means that heat pumps it's easier to design the system of heat pumps to satisfy the heating and cooling needs of the building. The same thing is happening with multifamily buildings now, which I think is very exciting, especially for low income affordable housing. I think you'll see things moving in this direction also.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just a couple other follow-up questions.
Go ahead, Representative Barry.
First of all, just on that last point, the bricks behind me, do not take offense at your characterization. They are expensive, and it is nice to avoid that construction cost. I'm curious about whether you'll continue to track that statistic going forward.
We will. We won't do it every year probably, but we will keep an eye on that.
Great, thank you. And shifting to the equity slides, showing the work that you've done across the geography of Maine, does that data include the work that's being done by the CAP agency? So the number of heat pumps that they're installing, for example?
No, it does not. So theirs would be additional to that.
And since they are very specifically targeting lower income households, that would actually increase the sort of overall equity of the geography, if you will.
That's right.
Great, thank you. Could you speak about load shifting? It's come up, I think, indirectly in quite a bit of the conversation so far and of your presentation. You indicated that you'll be moving more in that direction in the future.
Yeah.
Can you give some additional color to to that kind of efficiency and how you see Efficiency Maine Trust pursuing it?
Well, it is one tool in the toolbox for using the grid more efficiently. So all of the generation that goes onto the grid and how and when we use it to pull it off the grid, we can do that more efficiently than we have been. And that will reduce strain on the grid. It will, to Representative Foster's earlier question, as we expand the grid to meet the need, we won't have to build it. We don't want to build it one bit bigger than necessary because it's expensive and it's somewhat controversial in some places, as we've found. So you want to size it and operate it optimally, and not any bigger than necessary. So I'll take an example that is very small right now, but I think the potential for which is very large over time. An electric vehicle charges at something in the neighborhood of 7 kilowatts an hour. 7 kilowatts is the draw off of it. That's about 7 times as much as a typical house. So if you have a home charger and 240 volt outlet, like, you know, in your garage, and you plug that thing in at 5 p.m. when you get home from work, or 5:15 p.m., and if everybody in your block does the same thing, that's going to be a problem for the grid. That's like 7 houses turning on all at once. And so you can see that that's going to, you know, outstrip what the local distribution system has been designed for right now. But it's easily solved if you simply put it on a timer and shift it to wait till 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. to start charging. So a simple timer will do that. The cars have them. They have units that you can plug into your wall that will help do that for you. You can have it controlled remotely through a program. We've piloted all these things. We've found that they work very effectively. And that would mean, if we could do that successfully and get ahead of the curve, that would mean that the utilities don't have to size the grid immediately for us all coming home and plugging in our EVs all simultaneously. So that's just one example, but it's a really easy one to describe. The same thing is true, obviously, with businesses, manufacturers. And so the load shifting is going to be to try and, especially as more and more renewable energy is what is feeding our grid, and it's intermittent in nature, we're going to want the ability to have some pieces of load that we can move around. Another thing that you can do is with refrigeration, and anything that is heated and anything that is cooled, you can charge it up and store it in some form of a battery, or maybe in a tank in hot or cold fluids, in the off hours, and then use it in the peak hours. So you're reducing peak that way. So that's working quite well with refrigeration systems, like in food processing, for example. You can charge it up overnight and then avoid using all the electricity during the day.
Thank you. And then just
Any
a final
further? Go ahead,
clarification on that.
Representative Berry.
Thank you. Just a final clarification on that. Will Efficiency Maine be requiring that heat pump hot water heaters, and other devices be connected, be capable of participating in load aggregation and demand response?
Right now, we have not instituted any requirements that they get set up that way, because we're concerned that that would potentially have a chilling effect on the momentum we've been building. That's one issue. It's not terribly expensive to add. If it's worth it, if it's going to be worth it, if it's a big enough load, like the cars would be an example, the EVs, it is a big enough load, so it would be worth it, where we think that we can have incentives that would say, when you buy the thing, get this to go with it, this controller, so that we can do this in the future. So we probably will do that. The technology is just emerging now, so we're just a little bit too soon, I would say. Heat pump water heaters is the other one that people often talk about. They come configured to be able to do this, which is helpful, but there still is the need to install some controls. They're a little bit expensive right now and a little bit more than would be cost effective, but we're watching it very carefully.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Representative Berry. Representative Grochowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Mr. Stoddard. I have, I think, just a quick question. I really appreciated when you talked about the quality assurance work that your team is doing and a certain percent of installations. I think that's really important as more people get into this game, and whereby you have what are, I think, called preferred vendors that are able to help Mainers achieve or receive the subsidies, if you will. It's really important that they be doing a good job. So I think that's excellent. What I have a question about is I've noticed that you have a code of conduct that these vendors are supposed to follow. And I've had some concerns with that with some people locally, but I don't know if there's a way that people can give you feedback and say, you know, I feel that this code of conduct wasn't followed. Are you seeing a pattern? Are you doing a follow-up? Because I think it's really important that Maine people trust the efficiency Maine vendors are going to do what they've signed on to do, not just installing a good system, but, you know, are they communicating in the way they're supposed to? Are there upfront estimates, et cetera, et cetera. So I wonder if you have a QA program on sort of the code of conduct aspect of the work for vendors.
What happens is people should call our toll-free call center and say that they want to speak to somebody about an experience that they've had. That call will get routed to the appropriate staff who will make a note of it. And at a minimum, if there's a pattern, we would expect to see that pattern. But even regardless of patterns, we would get in touch with the vendor and probably in an anonymous way, you know, anonymizing the customer or the source of the information. We would say, we heard about this concern, just wanted you to be aware of it. Like, do you need help from us to understand how you could do this better? Sometimes it's about something technical, like whether they installed something properly. Sometimes it's about some of the softer things that you described, like communicating and providing estimates and being timely and things like that. So just good business practices. We are offering more training now, you know, like Dale Carnegie training on communication. So we actually are doing more and more basic training to help things. This goes back to I think one of Representative Sachs' first questions about capacity building for the vendor community. So this is an area that I neglected to mention that we have been trying to beef up.
Any follow-up, Representative Grochowski?
All set.
Thank you. Representative Foster?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Stoddard, before we finish up, I do have one final question. You've appeared before this committee before, and at least more than one occasion have mentioned that some of the bills that we have before us that increase electric rates for ratepayers make your job a little bit tougher at Efficiency Maine. And I think looking at our schedule, we may have one or two more of those coming up this session that would do so. I'm wondering, as you look at what's happened with the standard offer, what's projected for some of the measures that are in place, such as net energy billing, some of the projections on, you know, where rates are going to be in 2022 and beyond, where you see this rather dramatic slope in most of your projects, if you will, whether it's heat pumps or heat pump hot water heaters, insulation, light bulbs, where you see that going in the future as people look at. I mean, I have neighbors that have a wood stove and they've got an oil tank full in the basement from earlier pricing. And they're asking me, you know, how am I going to afford to run the heat pumps that I had installed this last year? So that would be my question. How is Efficiency Maine looking at where we go from here with the significant increases in electric rates for Maine. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Representative. I think the standard offer for this year is hopefully anomalous. I mean, we are in extraordinary circumstances because of the pandemic and sort of the shock waves that it has sent through the energy industry. So that particular issue, it's not great news. I would be the first to agree that this is regrettable that standard offer price jumped up this year. On the other hand, it's just for a year, and hopefully next year will be better with regard to the standard offer. Because I'm hoping that problem resolves itself naturally as the energy markets come back from the impacts of the COVID pandemic. So I don't have a great answer to that, but I think that I don't expect that to be as severe in future years. I don't think that's a systemic thing. The other policy-driven things that you point out, there are trade-offs, and it is a concern, and it's something I know you all think about a lot and will continue to think about. I'm convinced that this state is going to heat its homes and buildings using heat pumps. And 10 years from now, most people will be doing that. And 20 years from now, almost everybody will be doing that. And they'll be running them on electricity. So whatever costs we build into our electricity rates is going to fall on everybody. And if you're concerned about whatever constituency you're concerned about, whether it's your local town, whether it's low income customers, whether it's small businesses, you got to be thinking, I wonder how this is going to impact them, because I'm pretty sure 10 years from now, most of them are going to be heating and cooling their buildings with electricity. So, and they're going to be running their cars off of it too. So you're just, you guys have a really hard job. You have to figure out the trade-offs, and you have to balance those things and try to achieve all the goals and objectives we have in this state from a policy perspective, with trying to keep those costs as low as possible and as affordable as possible. So I think, I think we just have to scrutinize every policy choice to think about that and see how it shakes out. But there's lots of them, and I will try to. I haven't done any specific analysis, Representative Foster, so I can't point to a dollar amount or a specific policy. But I concur with your general direction, which is it's something that's got to be taken account of, since I think the reality is that in the future we will all be using this energy source, so we would all be well served to keep it as affordable as possible. It's going to make us more competitive with our neighboring states if we have affordable energy costs, obviously, and it'll mean more savings in our bank account for average homeowners if we can make this affordable. I think it's potentially a great story because this new technology is so incredibly efficient. So we should be able to be heating our homes cheaper than we were before, and our businesses. So it potentially is a really good story, but it's going to be hard work, and there's a lot to consider. So I appreciate the challenges you all face.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I appreciate you coming here and you being here for this presentation. We are at, I believe, right around 10:45. So it's our custom to take a break around 10:15, but I extended a little just to give time for all the questions to be asked for Michael and allow him to go and not have to hang around for our sewer district work sessions. So thank you again, Michael, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time we hear from you or talk to you. Thank you for coming. So we'll be on break now till 11 o'clock, and then we'll come back and finish up with the 2 sewer district bills. So I'd ask everybody to mute and to turn off your video, and please do come back because we do need a quorum for the work session. Thank you.
On time again, Steve.
Can't be late for watch. They'll get you on the other end.
Okay, we are back with the Energy Utilities and Technology Committee. Jason, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Great. So one thing that I was going to mention to you is we used to be able to have a screen that went up that identified the time we were going to be coming back for people on the website. So if you could just check with LIO on how our clerks did that, I think that'd be a good idea to, when we take a break, to get back up on the screen.
Okay, I'll work on it.
Okay, great. And let's see how many members we have back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a quorum back. And if I am not mistaken, this is the first work session we're going to do this year. Isn't that right, Lindsay?
That is correct.
Okay. So this is an exciting new test for Lindsay and Jason for us to go through. And it's a good time for us to review what our work sessions for the public. And so there's an understanding of how the process will work. As we go forward, work sessions are different than public hearings. We've had public hearings so far this year where the public is allowed to comment. Work sessions are a time when, after the public hearing, the committee gets together to reflect on the public hearing and to decide what it's going to do with the proposed legislation. Work sessions are time for the committee to work together by itself. It is not another public hearing, and it is not another chance for public comment. That is not to say that we don't want public comment, and we encourage you to submit it in the form of writing to our committee, which will be shared with the committee clerk, which will be shared with committee members. If you have any reflections on what was said at public hearings or additional information you want to provide. The process we generally use in a public hearing, in a work session, is to have our analyst, Lindsay Laxon, report to us on the public hearing and essentially do a summary. And the purpose of this is to just trigger our memories on what happened at the public hearing, what was asked, what kind of information was presented. And also she will highlight if committee members have asked specific questions that they've asked people to come back to at the work session with answers. And we'll turn first to those questions after we have a chance to ask Lindsay any questions about her analysis. And we'll get the information back to the committee that we requested. If at any time a member of the committee wants to hear from somebody who may be in the audience, we have the ability to call that person, promote them to panelists, allow them to answer the question or addressed by the committee member. But again, it is not another chance for the person coming on to make another speech or talk about either the good side or the bad side of this legislation. The purpose of this is to simply get them to answer the committee's question and to provide us the information we need to make our decision. And members of the public do not have an opportunity to rebut or counter that information when the committee is asked a question. If another member of the public wants to provide different information and a committee member calls them up to speak, that can be done through that process. We may have a number of work sessions on a piece of legislation. Sometimes we've had 4, 5, or 6 work sessions before we finally get done. So I'd encourage people in the public to continue to send information to the committee before anytime before our final vote that we may want to consider in considering this legislation. Having said that, we'll go on to our first work session. So I will, what's the first bill, Lindsay?
First one up, if you would like, is LD 1760. So this is an act to amend the charter of the Booth Bay Harbor Sewer District to set the terms of its trustees at 3 years.
Great. So I will lay before the committee this LD 1760 and ask Lindsay to present her analysis report from the hearing. Lindsay?
Excellent. All right. So I have just sent the analysis out for 1760 and the bill, which will be next up, which is 1829. So you should have that in your email, and I'm about to share my screen. Bear with me one moment. Okay. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is LD 1760, an act to amend the charter of the Booth Bay Harbor Sewer District. This bill amends the Booth Bay Harbor Sewer District Charter to establish a 3-year term for trustees elected to the board. The bill includes a retroactive effective date to November 5th, 2019. We heard from proponents at the public hearing. No one spoke in opposition or neither for nor against. And the only question that came up at the hearing was from Representative Grahowski regarding the effective date of the bill. And so there was some question about whether it would be September of 2019 or November. The November effective date as drafted in the bill would be the appropriate date to use in this case. The 2019 amendments were effective in September, but for the purposes of bringing the changes to the charter out to the voters. So upon approval by the voters, that's really when the substantive provisions came into play. So to make this change to set the trustee term at 3 years, November 5th, 2019, that works. And then lastly, we have heard from OFPR that no fiscal notice required. So that concludes the analysis I've got on this one. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Are there questions from the committee for Lindsay? Did I see your hand up, Representative Berry?
I was prepared to make a motion, but I'll wait until any questions have been answered.
So Lindsay, my only question is making that effective date retroactive, that doesn't raise any legal issues for the sewer district, does it?
It doesn't appear to. In talking to the district, this was just an oversight in the 2019 amendments, and everyone's been operating under the assumption that it was a 3-year term. So this shouldn't raise any issues.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll recognize someone for the purposes of making a motion on this bill. Representative Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move this bill ought to pass.
I would second that.
Seconded by Representative Wadsworth. Debate or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll just ask you, Jason, to call the roll of the committee.
Senator Lawrence?
Yes.
Senator Lawrence is a yes. Senator Vitale?
Yes.
Senator Vitale is a yes. Senator Stewart? Senator Stewart is absent. Representative Berry?
Yes.
Representative Berry is a yes. Representative Cuddy?
Yes.
Representative Cuddy is a yes. Representative Grahowski?
Yes.
Representative Grahowski is a yes. Representative Kessler?
Yes.
Representative Kessler is a yes. Representative Ziegler?
Yes.
Representative Ziegler is a yes. Representative Sachs?
Yes.
Representative Sachs is a yes. Representative Wadsworth?
Yes.
Representative Wadsworth is a yes. Representative Grignon. Representative Grignon is absent. Representative Foster.
Yes.
Representative Foster is a yes, and Representative Carlo.
Yes.
Representative Carlo is a yes.
Okay, can you announce the vote totals, Jason, please?
So we have 11 yes and 2 absent.
Okay, 11 members having voted in the affirmative and no members in the negative and 2 members being absent, the motion prevails. Okay, we'll start our work session on our second bill, and I believe that's the Ogunquit Sewer District Bill. Lindsay, is that correct?
That is correct. So
And
if
what's
you're ready,
the LD number?
that is LD 1829.
Okay, so I will start the work session on LD 1829 and ask Lindsay to present her report.
Excellent. Bear with me one moment while I share my screen. Okay, please let me know if you can see my analysis for 1829.
We can.
I can.
Excellent. All right. This one's got a little more meat to it, so bear with me. This bill amends the Ogunquit Sewer District Charter to update the charter in accordance with the Standard Sewer District Enabling Act. These changes included updating some statutory references. Some of them were out of date in the charter and tied to a chapter that had been repealed, and also revising existing charter language for consistency with the Standard Act. The bill also added Standard Act language regarding rates and charges having to be adequate to costs necessary for repairs, replacements, and renewals. Additionally, the bill adds some language which is not part of the Standard Act. Number 1, allowing the district to furnish sewerage facilities to parts of adjoining municipalities served by a failing or failed subsurface wastewater disposal system or septic system as determined appropriate by the trustees of the sewer district. The current charter language only allowed for the provision of services to adjoining municipalities that were not served by sewerage facilities. Next, it clarifies that using the language other public utility in section 3 does not make the district a public utility for the purposes of Title 35A. The bill increases the district's debt limit from $7 million to $12 million. This was approved by referendum in November of 2021. And then lastly, to clarify the authority of the sewer district to construct and maintain sanitary sewers and sewage treatment facilities, while the town of Ogunquit may construct and maintain stormwater sewers and stormwater sewer systems. At the public hearing, we heard from proponents. No one spoke in opposition or neither for nor against. I did want to highlight for the committee that Stephen Hudson, representing the district, had provided the committee with a letter from the chair of the Ogunquit Select Board. So that was sent out to the committee. I just wanted to flag that. And so I will go through. There were some, I just have some technical points on the bill. Section 3, this is page 2, line 3. Some of the language that was replaced, a service corporation or district for consistency, that may want to be updated to utility. In section 5, page 2, line 19, it looks like there just may have been a typo or failure to update a citation. I think the intent was to notwithstand section 1046-4 as opposed to 3. Section 19, page 5, the new language does deviate from what is in the Standard Act. And so there are some provisions in the Standard Act that basically, if you want to deviate from them, a district would have to reference the provision of the Standard Act and say that it doesn't apply. So adding in notwithstanding that specific section should take care of that. And lastly, just a couple of things I wanted to flag for the committee. The charter itself, and you see this, with a lot of charters as I understand it, sometimes it refers to, the Standard Act directly, and other times it recites the language from the Standard Act. Sometimes saying, this charter is governed by this section of the Standard Act means that the charter itself will essentially update as the Standard Act is updated. Whereas if you just quote the language, if there's a change to the Standard Act, that wouldn't automatically sort of update in that charter, and that would necessitate a legislative fix later. I know from speaking to representatives of the district, however, they were interested in having that language in the charter. So I just wanted to flag that. And then lastly, this bill doesn't have a referendum clause, and it's not required for this to go to referendum, but changes to district charters are often sent to voters for approval. But I also to note the debt limit increase was approved by vote, and that is effective. And we have heard from OFPR, and no fiscal note is required. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and take any questions.
Thank you. And as committee members can see, Skeet gets a little excited by sewer district bills, so he likes to join in. Representative Barry, questions for our analyst.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay, thank you for that presentation. And I just wanted to clarify, so you did catch the inconsistency at the top of page 2, I think it's line 3, where it says, I think you mentioned it, it changes the wording to public utility in one instance, but then leaves it unchanged in the next instance.
That's correct. So the language that was stricken, originally it said public service corporation or utility. The bill, or excuse me, public service corporation or district. This bill changes that to public utility, but later in the sentence, the public service corporation or district, that language remains. So for consistency, that should probably be updated to public utility.
I strongly agree. And I have a follow-up question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
You may, go ahead.
So I didn't quite catch the second to last bullet. I think it was actually a sub-bullet in your analysis. Could you review that for us one more time?
Second to last bullet, is this the sort of the technical question about citing to the act directly as opposed to quoting the language?
Yes.
Yes. So essentially, when you have a charter, you can choose, the charter could say, for example, the district's enforcement authority, this is the example in my analysis, the district's enforcement authority against industrial users is governed by Maine revised statutes, and then cite to the Standard Act. So what that means is if that section of the Standard Act, later on is revised, the charter automatically captures that. Whereas if you actually say, they can pursue enforcement authority that could include, injunctive relief or whatever it is, if the Standard Act is subsequently changed, you might end up with a conflict there. And so they'd have to go back in. I know from speaking to the district, for their purposes, and this charter does in some cases reference the Standard Act that way, but in other instances, they actually spell out what's in the standard. One of the reasons, as I understand it, that a district might do that is if they want to be able, if someone's asking, well, what is your enforcement authority? They're able to point to language in a charter that directly states what their authority is and gives that language instead of citing to a statute that someone might have to go look up on their own. So, it's up to the committee, how they want to approach that.
Any follow-up, Representative Barry?
No, although I am curious as to what the sponsor of the bill would intend with that particular provision, and whether citing the statute would be preferred in your view, or would be if you'd like to leave it as is.
I hadn't really thought about it. I think I'd like to hear what Revisor or OPLA says. It's more of a technical issue. And then hear from what the sewer district thinks.
Well, I can speak to, I think this is, sort of a judgment call. If you cite to, if you include the specific language, you do, I think there's a greater chance that you'll have to come back in and legislatively update the charter in the future. To be honest, I don't know how often that happens. So from our perspective, I mean, I think it's really whichever way you want to go with. The district I'm sure has some feelings on this, though.
So I guess my preference hearing that would be not to cite the statute and simply leave it as is. But we'll hear from the district in a second. Any follow-up, Representative Berry?
All set.
Any other questions for our analyst while we have her presenting her report? Representative Grohowski?
Thank you. Sorry, I'd normally be able to look this up, but my internet went down on the break. My question is, when was the last time that Standard Act was amended? I feel like that might give us a sense of how frequently this happens. I know I could answer it on my own normally, but.
No, that's a great question. Bear with me one moment while I pull that up.
I'm empathizing with everyone trying to do something, all these things on one device now.
We're testing your detailed knowledge of utility law right now, Lindsay.
Let's see.
I guess the other thing I would say while she's looking is it seems kind of funny if the way it's drafted has some references and some, use of excerpts. Like it seems like it should be all one style or all the other style. I don't know why you do a half and half. If the point is to not have to refer back to that statute, then why are we sometimes referring back to it? That would be my question. Which is just something I think we need to decide.
So in looking at, it doesn't, I mean, I'm seeing a date of 2015. I'd want to look into this a little bit more as to, I'm not as familiar with the Standard Sewer Act as perhaps I should be. But I mean, it looks like this, I see an update in 2015, one in 2017. I don't know how much that substantively impacted the provisions of it though. So that's something I could certainly look into and bring back to the committee.
And I think Representative Grohowski's question about consistency is important, that we be consistent throughout the legislation and how we do this. Representative Berry?
Thank you. 2015 sounds right to me. And I don't know when it was before that, but I do think there was a substantial overhaul that year. I think the point about consistency is an interesting one. My view is that we do sometimes defer to local preferences as a home rule state, and that the statewide approach exists as a bit of a backstop and a touchstone, but not something that we want to impose wholesale across the state.
My only concern with that, Representative Berry, would be there's a lot of court decisions interpreting sewer district charters and things like that. And if we have one way of doing it in one district and one way of doing it in another district, you want to have some kind of consistency so courts can interpret how the legislature approaches sewer districts across the state. Representative Berry?
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that logic. And I think in an ideal world, that might be how we do things. But I suspect, if we were to ask our analyst how many private and special laws there are, how many district approaches there are that deviate from the statewide approach, it would require a really substantial overhaul of our statutes, and particularly our private and special laws, to get to that statewide model.
So are you asking about how many charters deviate, or how we technically refer to the statute in charters? Because that's more of a drafting question than it is whether or not charter districts deviate.
Was that question for me?
Yes, Representative Barry.
I may have misunderstood Representative Grochowski's concern and yours, but I thought that the concern was that we should decide whether we're going to deviate or not and do that consistently.
Okay, then I guess I misunderstood. If that's Representative Grochowski's question, I thought it was more about technically how we refer to in drafting the existing statutes. Representative Grochowski, do you want to clarify?
Yes, I'd be happy to. What I was saying was within any one private and special law, I think it should be consistent. Like, it seems funny to me that in this paragraph, we would refer to the Standard Act, and then in this paragraph, we would take language from that. I'm not saying we need to go through and clean up all the different sewer district laws, but why are we taking a mixed approach in any one particular one that's having an overhaul like this one is having right now? That was my point.
And that's a very good point, and I'd agree with that. I think you're talking technically about how the amendment is drafted, not whether or not it deviates from the state statute.
Correct.
So I think this is really a technical question for OPLA and the revisor's office, and doesn't affect the substance of what we want to do. So I think we ought to move ahead in looking at voting on the substance of what we want to do and defer to amendment review, revisors and OPLA coming back and saying, this is the kind of standard format where we're using to amend charter districts, sewer charter districts now. Is everybody comfortable with that approach? Representative Barry?
Thank you. I guess I would just ask our analyst to respond and ask if she is comfortable in terms of drafting it and being clear on what the committee intends.
So it's what I'm hearing you say is that what you're looking to do is where a sewer charter is pulling language from the Standard Act. If you have a charter that in some instances cites to the act by citing to the statute, and in some instances pulls the language, you would like to see it consistent in that charter document that either it always refers to the statute by saying, Title 38, section whatever, you'd want to see that throughout the charter, or it's always just the language. Is that what you're getting at?
Representative Grochowski, do you want to respond to that?
That's what I was getting at. I don't know if anyone else cares or agrees. I think Senator Lawrence, you indicated you might want to hear from the community on which approach works better for them. But it just, to me, it makes sense. If our goal is to not have to have people refer back to an act, then why are we doing it sometimes and not other times?
Correct. And I guess I just need some clarification. In the charter, are they pulling language from it and using that language, or citing to what, being bound by what the existing statute says?
In this charter, I'm sorry, did you want me to address that?
Yeah, please, Lindsay. Okay.
I mean, in this charter, we've got, an example of it's both, but I don't know how uncommon that is. It's possible that there could be situations where a district would want to cite. I'm guessing there may be situations where a district might want to cite to, perhaps if the statute is something very either complicated or dry, and maybe other provisions have a little more meat that a sewer district user might be interested in reading as part of the charter. There might be reasons behind why you would have that blend. I don't know that there's any, from a drafting perspective, I don't think that's necessarily problematic. It just does raise that issue that down the road, if there is a change to the standard, the district may have to come back. But again, that's a judgment call.
Representative Barry, do you want to weigh in?
Thank you. Yes, I think this is a substantive choice, and I think that there are essentially three approaches that we can take with respect to any substantive provision. One is to write something that deviates intentionally from the standard. Another is to cite the standard directly and have things change when the Standard Act changes. And a third is to use the language that's in the Standard Act, but lock it in place and therefore know that it will remain so unless explicitly changed in a work session like the one we're having here today. So I guess I think all of those are valid choices, and the decision that's before us should be pertinent to the provision rather than some kind of a universal.
No, I agree with you, Representative Berry, and I think that is the universal. We should follow what you just articulated. You know, when the sewer district wants to adopt a standard as their standard that currently exists in state statute, but doesn't want to be bound by any future changes in state statute, that should be clear. But if they're adopting whatever the state statute is now or going to be in the future, then that should be clear in the charter. So I just think we need some clarification from the sewer district from what they're interested in doing. But we have a standard when, I think it should be when we are saying that they are adopting the current standard or whatever it is in the future, then I think we need to cite to the statute. And when they're adopting the standard that currently exists as their now and forever standard, they can just move the language in.
Agreed.
Okay. Any other questions for Lindsay as we go on? Lindsay, there is one issue that you and I covered ahead of time, talking about whether or not the Algonquin the Algonquin Sewer District wanted to totally revoke the prior charter and adopt a totally new one, or adopt a bill amending the charter. And I just want to bring that to the committee's attention. We talked about that a little, and Revisor's suggestion and Opla's suggestion, which I agree to, is that we should adopt amendments to the existing charter and not abolish the new one and totally revise it. I understand the sewer district's wish to have a document that's not, that they can read from start to beginning and not have to go back and review prior versions. But when you get rid of the old charter and when you adopt a new charter, you create problems of, you know, all that was involved and the policies involved in adopting the old charter being carried forward, and consistency in the interpretation of the private and special law. So I think I've recommended that they do an amendment to their prior charter, and then later, if their attorney wants to put it all together into one document so they can read it consistently, that can be done. Is that a fair summation of what you and I discussed, Lindsay?
That's accurate, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that issue? Okay, why don't we bring somebody in from the sewer district to talk about the issues we've been discussing, and I also have an additional question for them. And I'd ask you, when you're transferred in, just raise your hand, and then I will recognize you.
Senator Lawrence, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm Stephen Hudson, and I'm here. I am joined by others in the attendee space, but I just wanted to let you know that if I can answer your questions, we try to make it as simple as possible.
I guess I'll ask Steve, who do you want to have answer our questions on behalf of the district?
Right. I am ready, willing, and able to do so, but we also have the chairman of the Board of Trustees, Bill Sawyer, in the attendee space, as well as the superintendent, Phil Pickering, as well as my partner, Joe Donahue, who was actually the original drafter of the legislation. But I've conferred with all of them, and I think I can at least provide some answers to your questions. If you want to go into more detail, we can certainly have those folks join, and you can ask them directly, but I will defer to the
Okay.
group.
And why don't we bring one person also from the sewer district over, Jason, because we may have specific questions for them, but go ahead and you can answer our questions, Steve.
Is there anyone in particular you'd like to bring over?
Why don't we bring over the superintendent?
That would be Phil Pickering.
And you might as well bring over the chair too, while you're at it.
This is William Sawyer.
Yep. So Steve, why don't you go ahead and address our technical question about referring to provisions in the statute.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for everyone listening, my name is Stephen Hudson. I'm an attorney with Purdy Flaherty. I'm here today on behalf of the Ogunquit Sewer District. As I said, I'm joined currently in the panelist space by Bill Sawyer, the chairman of the board, and Phil Pickering, the sewer district superintendent. So with regard to the specific question, which deals with the two items that were noted in Lindsay's email, notes and issues under technical. I guess first, there is the Standard Sewer District itself allows, Standard Sewer District Act allows variations within charters. So I think that's important to note. But more importantly, I think the reason that those two items were specifically called out as opposed to referenced were because we have seen in our experience that increasingly enforcement authority for sewer districts with regard to pretreatment requirements is often challenged, increasingly challenged, not often. And so we wanted to be very specific and explicit so that anyone with a pretreatment permit understands exactly what authority the district has. And we wanted that authority to be explicit and sort of permanently enshrined in the district's charter. The second one is the compensation issue, and that the language that we had contemplated was that this compensation would be explicitly, it would include the approval of the municipal officials explicitly, so that their role in setting that compensation would remain regardless of any future changes. And that was important. And I think we are only hesitant to do that because the town has seen this language, and I don't frankly know how important it was to the town officials that supported the bill as drafted. But I would be loath to sort of only include them by reference at this point. So those are my two responses on those two technical issues. Clearly our preference is to be explicit in those two instances. If the committee feels otherwise, I think we're prepared to just move ahead to get this done.
Okay. Great, that's very helpful. Any questions on that issue for Steve? So my other question is more for either Bill or Phil. I noted in there that you're talking about potentially bringing in users from outside of the municipality of Ogunquit. And can you just give me an idea of where you're looking to go with it? Is it into the Cape Nettic area of York or into Moody, potentially of Wells?
Yes, Senator, this is Bill Sawyer. I could certainly answer that question.
Go ahead, Bill.
Our current ground rules are that we can provide up to 6% of our capacity outside of our district. And I think, and we are currently doing that. For instance, things like the Cliff House, which is in Cape Nettic, is currently a customer of the sewer district, frankly, our largest customer. So we have the ability, I think we were just broadening the reasons that we could extend that to include someone whose sewer system has failed. And in our responsibility to be respectful of the environment, that would give us the option to hook those people up to the Ogunquit Sewer District. And the reason predominantly is that the York Sewer District is in the other side of town. On our side of the town, if it's more convenient for us to do that, more appropriate for us to do that, we do that. But we do that with the proviso that we will not exceed 6% of our capacity being outside of the town of Ogunquit.
Okay, yeah. And a lot of it, I understand, is geography and elevation and slope. Getting into the York Sewer District is difficult for those people in Cape Nettic. What are the voting provisions regarding people who are served outside of the district and the areas that are served outside of the district?
Well, frankly, all of our voting right now is done via the town of Ogunquit during the normal annual town meeting and the special town meeting. So in that regard, those people don't have voting rights for the sewer district, and for instance, didn't get a chance to vote on our amendment to increase our debt limit. But we're certainly respectful of them. We're respectful of their needs, and respectful of our responsibility to the environment. So where it's in the best interest of all those parties, we make our best efforts to satisfy the needs of people in adjoining municipalities, which for the most part is York.
Okay. And have any legal or constitutional issues have been raised regarding their ability to vote in the district?
None that I'm aware of, sir.
Okay. And are you aware of any, Steve?
No, I'm not. I am aware that other districts, in fact, serve parts of communities that are outside of their chartered territories as allowed under their charters, as in this case. But I think it's important to remember that those folks are served as almost a convenience to them, and then certainly as part of the sewer districts across the state, trying to make sure that all such pollution receives appropriate treatment. Those folks can certainly leave if they feel that they're somehow being ignored by the sewer district. Those are their options. But I'm not aware of any district that has extended voting rights to neighborhoods or parts or individuals that are, if it's a different question if it's maybe an expansion, joining with another municipality, for example, which would be a much bigger deal. Where we have multi-community sewer districts, there are voting rights for all those communities that are part of it. But in this case, it would be highly unusual and I think perhaps difficult to implement.
Okay. Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for either Steve, Phil, or Bill? What's the sense of the, thank you all, and you can now move them up. I'm sorry, Seth, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I don't think it's probably worth getting into a back and forth about this, but I would like to know if our analyst could just circle back with us at some point on, perhaps just with me, others if interested, on ground truthing the idea that the utility customers can leave. I'm not entirely clear how that would work, and I have had some experience with people being required to take service. Maybe Mr. Hudson, you could just elaborate briefly without going on.
I will try not to be too long, but thank you, Representative Barry. In most cases, when a charter is established, a sewer district or even a water district charter is established by statute, the members of the municipality, the residents of the municipality that make up that utility district are required to be customers. Whereas in the other cases that we're talking about, those customers outside the chartered service district are voluntary customers. You've heard from Mr. Sawyer about how, it's to some degree convenience, to some degree economics, to some degree wanting to do the right thing for in cooperation with a neighboring sewer district that really does, it becomes much more expensive for them to reach people that they would otherwise be required to serve. So a lot of it's cooperative, but it's also noted that in those cases, it is voluntary, so that if a group of individuals that are voluntary customers of a sewer district feel that they are better served going elsewhere, they have the ability to do that.
Thank you.
Any follow-up, Seth?
Yeah, so just to turn to Mr. Sawyer, two questions for you. First, on the last topic, if I understand Mr. Hudson correctly, the Cliff House, for example, which is outside of Ogunquit, but which takes service, could decide tomorrow that it no longer wished to take service, and would there be a fee associated? Would they? I mean, you've obviously paid to install the pipe and for the infrastructure. So how does that work? Can they just walk away without any penalty, or what would happen?
Yeah. The largest expense from the Cliff House specifically was borne by the Cliff House. So most of the issues were there. Prior to joining up with the Ogunquit Sewer District, they basically had their own sewer treatment capacity. So they could certainly choose to go back to that at their own expense should they wish to. But I think the economics of today, they would probably agree that they're getting pretty good service from Ogunquit and would continue to stay with us. Great.
That's the best reason to stay. And a follow-up for you. The act, as with all utilities, empowers you to use eminent domain where necessary. And I'm just curious if you've had to exercise that right in recent history, or if you've been able to steer clear of it.
No, I've been around the sewer district for only about 7 years or so, but we've never done it in that, and I'm not aware of any instances prior to that we may have done it. So we pretty much work on a cooperation basis with the town, with the specific owners, and I don't know, including we've just acquired 93 acres in Ogunquit for a potential move of our sewer treatment plant should sea level rise continue at the rate that we expect it to, and we did that clearly on a purchase basis with an agreement with the owner and the town being advised of that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Bill, I do remember when Kathy Weir from the Cliff House wanted to connect, and her decision to pay for it, essentially up to the Ogunquit line, the connection. Are there other people who also connect from Cape Nettic, and do they connect into the Cliff House line and then connect to Ogunquit?
You know, Senator, I think Phil might be a better resource to answer that question than I, if I could let Phil answer that question.
Phil, go ahead.
Yes, Senator Lawrence. There's actually a contract with the Cliff House that there will be no third-party connections. It is a large force main, it's high-pressure force main. We didn't want the average homeowner trying to connect into that. So we have not serviced anybody really closer to the Cliff House. Most of our focus has been on water runoff that would be coming into Ogunquit is also one of our policies.
Okay. So you have no other customers outside of Ogunquit?
No, we have serviced areas that are the north part of York, which is abutting Ogunquit's town line.
Yep.
And a lot of our service lines were gravity. So we did some Pine Hill south,
yep.
Some Pine Hill north areas.
Okay.
Basically on water quality information.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Bill, Phil, or Steve before we send them back over to the other side? Let me just check the hands and see. I don't see any. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen, for participating.
Thank you.
We'll go back to committee deliberations. I do have a question for Lindsay. Is this going to require any amendment from the committee to be drafted?
Well, it depends upon what direction the committee wants to go. So in my analysis I provided, the first 3 bullets are language changes that I would recommend just based on what the bill is trying to accomplish and for consistency's sake. The last 2 bullets are sort of just considerations for the committee. So it depends upon what you would like to do.
Okay, so it sounds to me like we're going to need a motion ought to pass as amended, which I see Representative Berry's hand raised and I'll refer to him on. My purpose of asking the question is that means you're going to have to bring back something to us for language review. And I would like you to take a look at the voting rights issue and get a little clarification on that for both Representative Berry and I and other members of the committee. We ran into this with the Kittery, I believe it was sewer district or maybe water district, where they were looking to expand their area. And I remember John Clark weighed in and said what they were looking to do was unconstitutional because they had to equally grant voting rights within the served areas. So maybe if we could get some input from him or from you, research from you on what it means when a town goes voluntarily outside of the district. Town goes to people outside of the district who want to voluntarily connect, and what are the requirements on voting rights? And if it's fine the way it is, that's fine. I just know how political these things can become sometime, and I don't want to create an issue down the road.
I'm happy to look into that.
Okay. Representative Berry, are you ready to make a motion?
I certainly am, if there are no other questions or comments.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that LD 1829 ought to pass as amended, with the amendment being the 3 technical amendments that our analyst recommended and leaving out the more substantive matters that her last couple of bullets pertain to.
Okay, that's great. And so the motion is ought to pass as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Representative Kessler. And so any further debate or discussion? And just for the committee's information, after we vote today, assuming it's passed, ought to pass as amended, it will come back for language review, at which time Lindsay is going to provide us any additional information. If there was further amendment we had to do at that point, it would require a motion to reconsider. We would then have to open the bill up again and make further amendments if we needed to. And that's just to explain to you the procedural process for what we're doing. So if there's no further debate or discussion, I'll ask Jason to call the roll.
Senator Lawrence,
Yes.
Senator Vitale,
Yes.
Senator Stewart is absent. Representative Berry,
Yes.
Representative Cuddy. Representative Cuddy. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Cuddy is yes. Representative Grohowski.
Yes.
Representative Grohowski is yes. Representative Kessler.
Yes.
Representative Kessler is yes. Representative Ziegler.
Yes.
Representative Ziegler is yes. Representative Sachs.
Yes.
Representative Sachs is a yes. Representative Wadsworth.
Yes.
Representative Wadsworth is a yes. Representative Grignon. Representative Grignon is absent. Representative Foster.
Yes.
Representative Foster is a yes. Representative Carlo.
Yes.
Representative Carlo is a yes. I have 11 yes and 2 absent.
Thank you. The vote is 11 voting in favor of ought to pass as amended. No one voting in opposition and 2 members being absent. The motion prevails. Okay, so that concludes our second work session, second bill in this work session. Lindsay, is there anything else to come before our committee that we need to deal with today? Sorry, Lindsay?
Oop, are you able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. There's nothing else on our agenda for today, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything else from the committee we need to discuss before we adjourn? I don't see any hands raised. So with that, we are back. Is our next meeting next Tuesday, Lindsay?
We do not have the schedule out yet, so stay tuned for that.
You need to get after those chairs because they're not doing their job and getting the schedule decided upon.
Well, I hear they're very busy, so.
Yeah, okay. Good. Well, thank you all for attending today, and we'll let you know of the updated schedule shortly.